الو. الو. معليش أنا أسمع في شيء عليه. تمام. تمام. لا ما زي ما بديوش. Bize mi yapıyoruz?
Hı.
Bize mi yapıyoruz? Bize kapama namı ne olacak? Bize de bir hanım
And this is the heart of the internet. It was owned by the government of US. When this revelation was done, as I told you, the data center providers went to the government and said, we are losing our business. Second motive for this transition was also that the US government wanted to cool down this anger, and they decided in 2014 to transition the stewardship of the IANA functions to the internet community. And the transition happened in 2016, so 2 years to make this transition. The third consequence of the Snowden declaration was digital sovereignty. Before, I think it was in 2010, we started to speak about digital sovereignty because of these GAFAM, these over-the-top companies who are collecting our data, using them without our consent, etc. So people started to speak about digital sovereignty. But after Snowden declaration, digital sovereignty gained popularity. And several different concepts, or let's say different ideas raised about this concept of digital sovereignty. So, digital sovereignty, we still don't have the slides, huh? Okay, so digital sovereignty, the reflection on digital sovereignty raised from the concern of people, community users, states and individuals, that they are losing the control of their destiny to the benefit of poorly defined or identified and illegitimate entities whose objective is not to promote the global public interest. Digital sovereignty can be applied to individuals and also can be applied toward nations. The bottom line is that digital sovereignty involves consideration to how data and digital assets are treated. Who are these entities we are speaking about? An example of them are GAFAM. GAFAM stands for Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft. These entities are collecting data I told you before, so it is a concern for people. The control of digital data generated by the activities of more than 4.5 billion connected users, added to the situation of monopoly of these companies and others, gives these operators a power that is frightening the whole internet users. They are asking questions like, who sets the general condition of use of digital applications? Who determines the information or reading suggestion sent to the internet users on social networks? Who stores and uses personal data entrusted or left without their knowledge by users, the aggregation of which forms the big data, which is considered, can we shut the, which is considered as the oil of the 21st century. So, but sovereignty shouldn't lead to fragmentation, because you know, if we, the most important thing from the internet is that internet is unique, it is interoperable, and if we lose these characteristics, internet is not internet anymore. So anything about sovereignty shouldn't lead to the fragmentation of the internet. So no internet shutdown, no duplication of the root zone, no censorship, etc. This is not the solution. These are not the solution. The uniqueness, the openness, and the interoperability of the internet is key. But you will tell me how to reach then digital sovereignty. First of all, we have to improve confidence in a more trustful internet. Second, we have to fight all kinds of surveillance and illegitimate use of users' data. In conclusion, I will say that trustful, unique, open and interoperable internet is possible. It's possible by more global governance to protect the vital functions of the internet, and also by establishing communally recognized standards and regulating the cyberspace using more severe punishment against illegitimate use of users' data, and more importantly, against any type of surveillance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tegani. Now we have, as Mr. Tegani mentioned, they started to speak about the digital sovereignty and the definition. I tried to write some definition for digital sovereignty. I'm sure that it is still vague and still confused about the meaning because this is new. But as mentioned, Mr. Tegani gave the introduction about the digital sovereignty. Now we will have to move to know about the other aspects of or other dimensions of digital sovereignty, because it's cross-cutting issue. We have legal aspects, we have technical aspects. So Ms. Khadija Ramah, she is Tunisian professor, and she is a member of North Africa IGF MAG. So Khadija is ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I want to share my presentation. Please, 1 second. I hope this you can see. No, you can see this my screen. Excuse me. I can't hear anyone. I can't. No sound. Is there a problem? Hello. Hello. Is anyone hearing me?
Okay. Ms. Khadija is ready.
I'm ready. I started.
Ms. Khadija, be ready?
Can you
of course,
see?
we would like, as organizer, to apologize for these issues. These technical issues is out of our hands, but
should I start?
جاهزة؟ أنا أتكلم في الليجل. Okay, so let us move forward. As introduction, and Ms. Khadija should be give our intervention about the technical issue or technical challenges related to the digital sovereignty in Africa, and it's supposed to be the last part is the legal aspect. So it will be provided by me. So we will move my intervention to now. So let us to go speak about legal issues. Okay. So first is my name is Muhammad Farhat, Egyptian lawyer, and I'm the vice president of MAG of National North Africa IGF. So about the legal issues, let us to start. What's the meaning of digital sovereignty? What is the digital sovereignty? So we have to understand what is the problems, what are the challenges, especially we face in Africa. We have to analyze the term. We have to analyze the term of digital sovereignty. So the digital sovereignty is composed from the two main words, sovereignty and digital. I think we don't have a problem about the sovereignty because, as Mr. Tigani mentioned, he gave to us the definition of sovereignty. And this term, many of scholars from not many years but many centuries ago, most of people, most of academic person, they discuss more in details what's the meaning of sovereignty. So the problem not is in sovereignty, but the problem is in digital. In our life, is in our life. The problem is what internet did in our life, not the sovereignty, because the sovereignty. The importance of this issue, if we back to or recall the definition, the legal definition of the state. What is the state according to the law? Anyone know what's the definition of the state? What is the state according to the international law? Okay, the state according to international law should, there is no any specific definition, but we can divide and we know the state by the elements. What is the elements? There is 4 elements, main elements. If one of them is not exist, we front of non-state. The first is the population. If we have a population, this is the first element. The second, the population. And the second is the government. And the government. The third element is the territory, the land. If we have the land or not have a land. The fourth and the most important one, the sovereignty. If any state, any countries has the first 3 elements, but this country don't have the sovereignty. So we front of no state. For example, if we speak about Somalia, according to the scholars, Somalia is now not considered as state, or they consider it as a failed state. Why? Because there is a population, we have a territory, we have a government, but there is a lack of sovereignty. This is a problem. So, when we come to the digital, from your point of view, it's possible to have a full control on internet in our cyber. This is a problem. This is a problem because if we speak about Malawi, we have person, we have a government, we have a laws, we have everything. So the Malawi government can have the power over the population, over the territory, over everything. But in internet, who can control the internet? This is a problem. And this is the real challenge. But the states, but I think from my view, not alone, as a group, as states, as a region, as a group of states can take some action to mitigate the adverse impact of internet. Because now we have a very rich product, which is the data. The economy now is the data, not the money, not the project, it's the data. Who possesses the data, he possesses everything. He loses the data, he loses everything. So this main point. So this, I would try to give you some information, not information, but to highlight about the importance of the digital sovereignty for all countries, especially for Africa. Because it's not weird that now if we speak about like Europe, the one from all the developed countries, but now they face a problem in digital sovereignty. This Europe, they face this problem. and this face some problem with the US about this same issue, the sovereignty. So you can imagine when the Europe speak about this issue, and they consider it's very real security threat for them security now, because they cannot do anything with US. And in another example, if we go like China or Russia, we find that they started to do what? To have their own internet. This is sovereignty. Russia, China, now they're working hard to get the sovereignty, real sovereignty, not just some regulation or some cooperation or coordination. No, we have own internet. This is sovereignty. Now, let me to move to speak about, sorry, I don't speak about using my presentation, so you consider this a discussion. So, now, when we come back about the legal aspects, what's the legal aspects related to this topic, the sovereignty? If we recall that the sovereignty, as I mentioned, about the real life, population, territory, and government. These are elements. So how we can move these elements to the internet? This is a legal issue. The population, we have a population in internet, but the governments can protect their person, their citizen. What your opinion is this? Especially when we speak about Africa. Here in Africa, our governments can protect us online. Musai? I think it's doubt. We have a doubt in this. Because no, this is one of the rule of the countries to protect their citizens. Online and offline. If the country cannot provide the real protection on online, so I think we have a problem. I think most of countries in Africa face the same problem. One of the same problem, this is why when I speak about the legal aspect, but I cannot, not me, but anyone can like address all the legal aspects related to this topic. Because we need to speak about, if we speak about the civil legal aspect related to the digital sovereignty, so we need to speak about data protection. We need to speak about cyber crimes. We need to speak about cyber terrorism. We need to speak about the legal aspect related to commercial issue, economy, and everything. So I prefer to pick one of these aspects, which is data protection. And you can call it data sovereignty. We have a digital sovereignty and we have data sovereignty who have a control over our data. So let me ask you one question. Do any one of you know where is our data as African people stored? Where our data stored? Where? This is a problem. Who has the sovereignty or who have the control over this data? So we don't have the sovereignty. This is a problem. This is a very big problem. Right? You can speak on the mic.
Thank you. When I joined from Tanzania, Judge of the High Court, it depends on the type of data. For instance, if you're using social media like Facebook, the data is stored in Ireland where they have the server there. So even if you're in Tanzania or in Africa generally, any country, your data, if you're using social media like Facebook, the data, we don't have control over that data. And of course, the US government has, a long arm on that, because it all depends on technology, the laws. But again, if, say for example, your country have data centers, you may have control over that, but it depends on type of data. So, thank you.
Okay, let me just add on to what he said. You see, we are our own worst enemies, because if data is hosted within the country by the government, we tend to become apprehensive by government hosting our data, but we are free to allow tech companies to host our data outside our jurisdiction.
Thank you for this. What you mentioned exactly. This is a problem. If the countries, if the states in African, let me focus on African, if the states didn't take any real action to have the sovereignty over the data, so that's mean this will lead to the private companies or public organizations have access to this data and have a full control over this data. So that's mean lead what, as Mr. Tigani mentioned, one of the main like element of internet to be trusted internet. How we can access to this trusted internet? We need to like protect our privacy. But if I'm like Egyptian, I know from the beginning in advance if I like take any legal, any action or any transaction online. But I know that my country cannot, if I face any problem, any legal problem, they cannot provide any legal actions because the government don't has any power over this data. But the private organization, the public organization, they have a power. And this is one of problem because I will not speak about the technical challenge, but infrastructure is the main issue in when we come to the digital sovereignty, who have the power to control and to take over of this infrastructure. This technical issue, I think Ms. Khadija will speak about this more. I will not address this issue. But this really, and also the over depends on the foreigner technology. This is one of the problem. Because let us to be honest with our service. Everything we depend on Europe, US. Europe, US. We need to depend about African issue. African technology. As Egyptian, I need to, I will prefer to depend on the technology come from Tanzania, from Kenya, from South Africa. I think it will be more trusted rather than I go to US. Because when I go to US, I know that from the beginning, in advance, our privacy, our data is out of our hand. And to be honest with ourselves, we cannot do everything. And it's easy, we use your data. So what we can do? Like if we suppose that European Union come, we take the data from African countries and we use it for any purpose. What African countries, what African Union can do? Nothing. So let me back to the data protection. What's the problem with the data protection? Let me to start give you about the map, about the legal issues or legal data protection laws in Africa. Do you know how many countries in Africa has a data protection laws? How many countries? 14. 33. Oh, this is my presentation. There is a I'm not following this presentation anymore, but anyone can give it. So we have only 33 countries has laws. And we have about 10 countries, they have a draft of laws. And we have 5 countries without any law. So we face a problem. This is a problem. Even if we have 33 countries has a data protection law. First thing, when we come to the sovereignty, from where these countries come or drafted, or what's the source of these laws? It's European law. This is GDPR. This is European law, not African. This is not African. When we come to data protection, we go to Europe. The problem also, when the African countries try to adopt the data protection laws, they make some let me say some gaps in these laws to ensure that they control their citizens. When we come the access to data, who have the access to national security in all the countries, even if without consent in advance. And most of laws don't have or don't organize the data cross border. They don't have. We will come to this, Malawi. But because it is a problem, I know we don't. Okay, it's good. We have a regional convention, and by the way, the one of the guidance, if you read the guidance of the Malawi Convention, one of the main elements, important, essential issue is digital sovereignty. To guarantee the digital sovereignty for African states. It's one of them. So, and Malawi is only cover or speak about cybersecurity and data protection. But as I mentioned, that the legal aspects is not only related to data protection and cybersecurity. We have other aspects. But if we speak about Malawi, okay, this is good start for Africa to have this convention. But the problem is we need because regardless I'm a lawyer or something, but the laws without the political will, it's nothing. It's nothing. And also to be honest with ourselves, as many countries, some of countries just adopt laws to what? To what? To protect citizens? No. The prestige. And to export image for others, we have laws. We are good countries, but when it comes to the implementation, nothing. And I'm swear, if you check most of data protection laws in Africa, in Arab countries, you will find one same provision. National security is not committed by this law. The national security has a right to access to the information without consent, without order from independent authority, without legal judicial review. This is a problem. So, okay, 1 minute. So what? Okay,
Just a remark to say that in Tunisia we have a wonderful law for data protection. But what is it for? It is to ensure that our data is not used illegitimately inside Tunisia. But outside Tunisia, how this law will be able to control? Because people are not going to the agency, to the authority and say, oh, Google took my data. Nobody do that. But if there is a problem inside the country, yes, it is very efficient.
So, with me to conclude, it was what our future should be, especially speaking about the legal issues. We have faced a problem. One is of legal change in Africa, the fragmentation of legal frameworks. So if I have data protection law, Egyptian data protection law. Okay, Tunisia has, Algeria has, other countries has, Ethiopia has, Kenya has. But if you check these laws, you will find many differences between these laws. So I think one of the most important steps we have to take in Africa, if we would like to reach to have a sovereignty over our digital life, we need to have one common law, not different laws. I don't speak about the treaties. Even if, okay, regardless, forget about the international treaties, but I need, when I go to like Malawi, I from the beginning, before I move from Cairo and come here, I know that if I face a problem related to my privacy, related to that my data, I know from the beginning what will happen, what's the legal action I will take. Because it's the same. In Cairo, the same. Here is the same. When I go to Kenya, it's the same. In Nigeria, it's the same. So this is most of it. And of course, one of important issue, Africa, when represented in African Union, should be present in international negotiation and international legal making process. Our voice, we should have a voice in international issue, because we know that from the beginning, okay, we provide our voice. This legal issue, this legal framework is applicable in Africa or not, because we have some private issue, and we have another like perspective when we speak about the issue, not like other countries. So our voice should be in the international era. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And I want to begin by thanking my friend Tijani, the chair of MAG North Africa, and Mohammed for putting this together. Highly commendable. Thank you very much. The conclusion is very clear. We need to have a common perspective. And I'm really happy that the AU and UNECA, that is United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, we are working together with other stakeholders to evolve the first recommendation, which is very important. Not necessarily a watertight law for everybody, but a law that sinks, a law that has a broader perspective, that has the same kind of thing. Malawi, you still have your right protected. I think that is commendable, and we hope that will come up. That will be finalized very soon. Now, with regard to Nigeria, we have evolved ways to implement data protection. First and foremost, on the law, there is a requirement that for law enforcement to seize my data or a server, it has to get a warrant. So that is required, a kind of authorization to do that. And then for the data protection provision, there are data protection companies, that have to audit, the data protection mechanism of companies operating within this sphere in Nigeria. And then Nigerian government has evolved a process to ensure this big five, they have domain in Nigeria so that they can be called, they can be summoned, to check, their compliance with the legal provision, to protect data. So you know about the Twitter bans. That is the whole idea, that you need to be around so that if we want to query something, we can get clarity. So I think the bottom line is that the multi-stakeholder mechanism must work. See, we need the private sector, we need those guys, okay? Because on the internet, creativity is allowed. But innovation is key. So we need to work together. We don't want to work in silos. But there has to be a common framework for us to work, to build confidence, and so that nobody else is surveying us and tapping our data without our knowledge. So I want to say thank you so much for this workshop. Very excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for you, and you let me to get some idea. And when I come speak about the recommendation, first recommendation, of course, I not means is that we have a copy paste from the laws, but about the philosophy, because when we're making the laws, we have should be there is a philosophy behind these laws. So what we need to be common is the philosophy, not the words, but the philosophy. We have one philosophy in all. For comments and discussion by the end of this session, but let us now to move to the other speaker about which Ms. Khadija Rammah, and she will cover and address the technical aspects related to digital sovereignty. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Ms.
you
Khadija?
and good morning. Hello, thank you.
Ms. Khadija?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Hello, I'm hearing you. Hello, good morning, everyone. Can I start? Can I begin with my talk? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, good morning. Please, anyone? Please, anyone can hear me? Hello. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Hello, I think we
Should
can
I
hear
start?
you.
Should I start now? I think I will. Hello. Yes, I see that some participants, online participants, are hearing me, so I will start now. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Khadija Rameh from Tunisia. I'm a computer science professor and engineer, and I was in the Tunisian internet ecosystem since its beginning. That means that I was there for 25 years now. I will talk about technical aspects of digital sovereignty. For this is our outline. I will briefly.
We are really sorry about this technical problem. Our session didn't work as it must do. We have a problem with the audio. She's speaking now. The speaker is speaking, but you can't hear her because there is. Pardon?
I hear you. I can hear you clearly,
no.
Mr. Tijani.
No. Vous l'entendez ici? Vous l'entendez ici? Non. No. No.
Yeah, hello. We can hear Dr. Khadija Clay.
We don't have the audio. She's speaking, but we don't have the audio. They don't have the audio. But she's speaking. We see how she's speaking.
I started. I'm waiting.
She's speaking now.
You can hear me. That's very good.
Yes.
Yes, we can start now. Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome to this session about this talk about digital sovereignty and the technical aspects of digital sovereignty. Can you hear me? I will begin. So my outline, I will begin with a brief definition of digital sovereignty and technological sovereignty from the point of view of businesses, of end users and states. Then I will talk about why digital sovereignty matters. Where is the power in the digital economy? Then I will give examples of practices of digital sovereignty, an example from Russia and China and Europe. Finally, I will present technical measures for digital sovereignty, technical measures to reach digital sovereignty, and I will conclude with a summary and takeaways. So Let's begin. Digital sovereignty is mobilized by a diversity of actors. Political leaders talk about digital sovereignty, scholars, business managers also, grassroots movements, anarchist-oriented tech collectivities also. All these people are talking about digital sovereignty to promote diverse goals. State protectionism for some, multi-stakeholder internet governance for others, or protection against state surveillance. So, digital sovereignty is the idea that we must have sovereignty over our own digital data. This can be applied on an individual basis, on a single organization basis, or toward a nation. Digital data sovereignty over the personal data for citizens. This is the personal aspect for end users. They want to have data sovereignty in, they want to be able to own their own data. For companies, mainly data-driven ones, digital sovereignty is important. This is the industry aspects. And for state, the political aspect. For example, for businesses, the main challenge is to embrace digital transformation without running the risk of being completely dependent on specific tech company, proprietary solution, and cloud providers. Mainly, this problem is, after the pandemic, this problem is more accurate. The transition to remote working happened in such rapid pace and wide scale, which caused many problems related to privacy of data user and led to many data breaches and leaks. Today, digital sovereignty for businesses is challenging because of the complexity of today's digital landscape. There is a complexity in the digital landscape and the limited number of alternatives. So, technological sovereignty implies the need for a country to develop and preserve its own autonomy with respect to key technologies. Key technologies we can summarize in 4 important key technologies: cybersecurity, big data and artificial intelligence, cloud services, hardware, and network infrastructure, mainly 5G infrastructure. Building technological sovereignty for state is difficult because building an entirely independent technology without any dependency on foreign solution is very difficult. You can't build an entirely independent technology. So it's wiser to ensure that used technology does not have any large-scale structural dependency on a foreign solution or on one or a small set of providers. So for a country, it must ensure that their user technology doesn't have a large-scale dependency on one foreign solution or a small set of foreign solutions. So, why this is important? Because there is a fact. Specific countries, few specific countries, mainly US and China, and few tech giants are gaining control over digital sphere worldwide. Countries have had a hard time to control and regulate the data created, shared, and consumed by their citizens. For example, 92% of data exchanged in Western Europe is stored in the United States. Moreover, some countries are interfering and requesting data from tech companies, mainly Google and Facebook, regardless of where that data is physically stored. User data requests from US government alone have increased by more than 500% for Google and 300% for Facebook. Large amounts of data owned by tech giants expose consumer preferences and exploit them. Big data feeds and enables the application of technologies such as artificial intelligence. That means that consumers can be exploited by big giant and by US government. In the digital economy, we have two words, China in one side and US in the other side. We have GAFA, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft in the many parts of the world. And in the other part, and China, there are equivalent companies which have a monopoly in the digital sphere. These companies are named in short BATX. So these tech giants are seeking to secure their central position. They want to secure their central position by investing in the development of technical standards and the construction of their own physical infrastructure, from data center to underwater cable. On the infrastructure level, these companies hold power over the global internet on a level that exceeds that of most countries in the world. At the application level, these companies are attempting to turn their platform, operating system, social networks, trading center, app stores, into distinct subnetworks, into subnetworks of the internet, in which they occupy central position of power. So they can determine which continent can be found, seen, perceived, and bit by which users. This massive power of these platforms gives them power over the global internet. This concentration of information and communication flows on the big platforms is leading to an increasing polarization of the digital public sphere and mass dissemination of disinformation and hate speech. So, in response, we observe an increased tendency to digital sovereignty practices and regulations. We need to digital sovereignty practices and regulation to feed this increasing polarization of the society, the digital society, and the dissemination of disinformation and hate speech. So, what these practices of digital sovereignty? We have 3 examples. China case. China government has achieved full control over the Chinese internet. Chinese internet is a sub-network of the internet, which is fully controlled by Chinese government. Moreover, now China, like US, seeks to become a cyber superpower and achieve political and economic superiority through technological supremacy. So, China made efforts to develop and disseminate technical standards. Mainly, we talk about 5G. China has held the dictatorship of ITU for several years. China also has developed many digital infrastructure projects in Asia and Africa as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. For Russia, Putin government announced a package of technical measures that aimed to establish a sovereign internet. It compels a Russian internet provider to create the technical infrastructure that allow all internet traffic to be routed locally. And it aims to take control over the DNS to no longer depend on ICANN. The aim for digital sovereignty by Russian government is to have a sovereign internet that doesn't depend on ICANN or on US big tech companies. And where the all internet traffic is routed locally. So, for Europe case, Europe is aiming to have digital sovereignty, although Europe have democratic states. Why? Because they want to assert their political, economic self-determination with regard to digital technology. Because digital technology can affect their political, economic self-determination and social self-determination. So their goals are to limit the power of the US government that become visible mainly after the snow leaks in 2013. Limit the power of big tech companies in today's platform economy. And shape a digital order based on their own values and ideas, domestically in Europe and on the global level. That's why they have implemented cybersecurity policies to protect critical data and technical infrastructure. They aim also to strengthen their own digital markets through regulatory policies and by promoting digital skills and competencies. So, based on all these examples, how as African countries can we reach digital sovereignty? I will talk about only technical measures. So, activate valuable partnership to use technological capability developed outside while preserving our autonomy. So we have to make valuable partnership with big tech companies. We need also to develop scientific knowledge and skills in digital technology. We need to build strong, resilient, and autonomous ICT infrastructure using equipment from as many manufacturers as possible to be independent from one or a small set of manufacturers. We need also to build sovereign cloud projects to decrease dependence on foreign cloud providers. Finally, we need to promote the use of free software, open source hardware, and encryption-based technologies like blockchain. So we almost arrived to the end. Some summary. Sovereignty implies the need for a country to have the lowest possible level of structured dependence. We can't have no level of dependence on the other worlds. Okay, but we have to ensure the lowest possible level of dependence. Digital sovereignty refers to a particular form of management of the cyberspace that involves a country's control of networks and data transmitted through them. So I prefer to talk about technological sovereignty. It's more important to have technological sovereignty than to just have digital one. Technological sovereignty of a country implies that its data economy does not have any large-scale structural dependency on a foreign solution or on one or small set of providers. So, because the nationality of companies that collect the largest quantity of data in any given country defines its full or lack of sovereignty over its digital assets. The strength of a country in terms of digital technological capacities. Large amounts of data expose consumer preferences and exploit them. Big data feeds and enables the application of artificial intelligence. So it's important to have digital sovereignty policies and regulation for the autonomy of African countries. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed my talk, and more importantly, that you can hear me well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khadija. Thank you very much, Khadija, for this presentation. So now you heard the three presentations. If you have any question about that, we have almost 15 minutes of discussion. Please, if you have any question or any remark, yes, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Khadija, for your presentation. We really appreciate. But at the end, what is your main? What are you advising for African country? Did we need to balkanize the technology such as each country have to be sovereign by himself, or we need African sovereignty digitals? That is my first question. And for the, excuse me. Yeah, I saw you have suggested some points to reach the sovereignty. I think I want to advise that we need to add maybe the six points, which there is less African people involved in protocols and norms. We cannot take advance on technology without being involved on working on protocols and norms. I think that we need to advise people, the new engineers, to be involved in this process, like ITF process. It's what Chinese people have done. All those big companies like Huawei and other companies, they pay engineers to be involved in ITF process. But when it's come to African people, there is less than maybe 20 African guys involved in that process. I think this is a kind of lake. Thank you very much. I don't want to stay long. Okay.
Thank you, Serge. Khadija, do you want to respond to this question?
Thank you.
Waiting for Khadija, I can tell you that any balkanization is refused. We don't have to have any balkanization. Internet is unique, and it must remain unique. If it is not unique, there is no internet. So.
When we speak about the sovereignty, we are not speaking about balkanizations, about the fragmentations, of course. So what you said about the participation of Africans and the IETF, for example, is key, is very important. This is what she said, this is what I said, this is what Mohammed said also. So the way to get our sovereignty on our internet is to be inside it, not to be user of it. If you are a user, others are controlling your destiny. We have to be inside it, so we have to develop our ability to impact the internet. And this is how we will reach when they will be sovereign on our internet. Khadija?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I agree with you. I am not advocating for a subnet, African subnet of network that is fully independent of the global internet. No, that isn't the point. I said that we have, I prefer to talk about technological sovereignty. Why? Because we need to master the technology. To be sovereign, we need to master the technology and promote scientific knowledge and technological soft skills and technological skills. And I fully agree with the 6th point, which is to be part of IETF and all standardization all work about the standard and norms regulating the internet. So it isn't about it. I'm not promoting the point of view of China or Russia. I see that the point of view of the sovereignty, like the Europe vision, is I prefer the point of view of Europe. We need to master the technology. We need to, yes, we need to have an ICT infrastructure that isn't depending on one or a small set of provider. And we have to activate partnership with many tech companies, with many manufacturers, and we need to develop our own infrastructure, our own cloud, our own sovereign cloud, our own and that's my vision.
Thank you, Khadija, for this answer. But Serge
spoke about protocol parameters. There is not only the protocol parameters. There is also the browsers. There is also the OS, the operating systems, etc. If we can develop our ability to participate, to be in it, we will be more sovereign. Any other question, please? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Khadija, for that very fluid presentation. My name is James Olufuye, Africa ICT Alliance. Well, it's important to participate in those fora, but it's expensive, very expensive to participate, really. So, you know, the internet race, the government got into it very late. It was started, and then the government came in very late, and they were, wow, what's going on? It's the same thing. So The government right here in the room or they are hearing, they need to take the bull by the horns. They have to set the pace because it costs money to be in those fora. And then local content law has to be in place. You need to have local content law. First, local expertise to implement solutions. And if I can't get it, based on collaboration, you look at expatriate to join it, but not as the first charge, you go overseas. We're not saying don't go overseas, but at least build your local capacity, to start with. Digital cooperation. The United Nations is talking about digital cooperation, and which is very key. So we need to focus on that, collaborating, and I think next year they're talking about digital compact. So, and charity begins at home. Roaming issues has been a challenge. Internet issue locally, well, we thank God, we really appreciate our hosts very much, but it's been a real challenge. So we need to take it up. Maybe AU, one African net, one net across Africa. We need to start at home. So thank you very much. Very useful workshop.
Thank you, Jameson. We have a remote question. Khadija, excuse me. Aisha, we have a remote question. We don't have. Okay. So thank you very much, Jameson. It is not an issue of personal contribution. It is an issue of strategy. Governments have to have a strategy about it. If it is only a personal initiative, it will not go very far. Thank you very much. Please.
Thank you so much. Just a quick one. Very wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. But my major concern is, especially, I think, being in Malawi and also in Africa, is understanding the environment that we're in. First and foremost, our energy production is very poor, and this has a huge impact on the internet. And I think we also need, as we speak about internet, let's think of the energy. I'm talking about the electricity here. Very bad, and it affects internet and the website. There is a huge issue that has been mentioned in terms of capabilities, human resource. We really need to invest in human resource. We have talked about it for a long time, but it's about time that we invested in human resource to be able to develop these things. The China example is very good. The Russian example is very good. The American example is good. And Africa, let's take advantage and do something similar. Let's come up with our own Facebook. What's wrong with that? Let's come up with our own Twitter. What's wrong with that? So the issue is, let's understand our environment. Let's push each other to the corner so that we're able to do it. I like those words. Individual interest do not help. Let's work as a group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are absolutely right. And you are speaking about connectivity. And if you don't have connectivity, how you can have sovereignty? How you can have internet at all? So this is, I agree with you. Connectivity is key. Now we are speaking about digital sovereignty when we have connectivity. If we don't have connectivity, we don't have sovereignty. Please.
Thank you so much, and apologies for coming in late, but I just want to chime in into the conversation and maybe give two things. Number one thing that I look at it that can also deliver the digital sovereignty is the issue of payment gateway. You know, as an African continent, we don't have a payment gateway that is African, and that makes it very difficult, you know, for us to do cross-border payments. So if I want to come to Malawi, you know, it's very difficult, you know, making payments to Malawi, whether I am here or not, you know. Let's also try and open up our mind and look at something like data portability, you know, that I can use my data that is already on my phone, you know, to just port it and use it while here. That can solve some of the challenges that, you know, we are here. It doesn't require me to buy a SIM card. I mean, you've traveled to 30 countries, you end up acquiring 30 SIM cards, you know, and each time you go back to that country because of the duration of time that it's taken you to go back to Malawi, you buy another SIM card. So at home you have like 100 SIM cards of different countries because every time you go, you know, you need to get that. So maybe those two things can also just help.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes. But this issue of SIM card when you go from a country to another is not African only. It is worldwide. And as you are speaking about payment, yes, this is a big issue. We speak about sovereignty when we have the internet. when we have everything of the internet. If we don't have connectivity, if we can't pay, we will not be able to have a full sovereignty. And full sovereignty is impossible. No one has full sovereignty on internet. No one, even the United States. It is a distributed power, if you want. But we want this distributed power to be balanced. Now it is not at all, and this is the issue. Any other question? Yes, Simpson. You spoke, but other people didn't speak. Please. Yes, please.
So basically, my comment comes back from Farad's presentation on legal fragmentation. So basically, if you look at the European model, on the data protection, they have the GDPR, which has extra territorial powers apart from Europe itself. As Africa, of course, we have the Malabo Convention, which talks about cybersecurity and data protection. But if you were to ask me, out of the 53 African states, how many have ratified? Because it only needs 14 states to operationalize it. So basically, I've seen a list here of countries who have data protection laws, which is more like 30% of the African countries, which I believe are more than 14. But why is it that we are so apprehensive to append and ratify our own Malabo Convention, and yet in one way we are talking about digital sovereignty when it comes to data protection? We want a law that reflects on each other's laws within the African context. In other ways, you meant to say we should have one single law that applies to an Egyptian, the same would apply to a Zambian like me. But there are status to these things. To me, I believe the first one is the Malabo Convention. Once we operationalize it, it becomes a mirror. The next thing is we'll go the European way, where we have an African data protection regulation that will protect Africans' data within Africa. Thank you.
Okay, so of course I agree with you, but let me to add, the problem is not in the convention, but about the mechanism of implementation. So if you bring the example of Europe, but do you have, in Africa, we have mechanisms like Europe, we have regional courts for justice, for example? We don't have. If we bring this example, if anyone in any place, anywhere in Europe face a problem, he can go to there is a mechanism, there is a course, there is a legal action he can take and go more further. But here, no. So I think the problem is not in signing the Malabo Convention, but what is the mechanisms? Now, let me to imagine with you now, the 53 African countries now all ratified the Malabo Convention. So what? What after that? Nothing. Because we don't have the regional mechanism. Okay, we have national, of course, we have national mechanism. Each one can approach this national, but what about the regional issue? In regional level, not in national level. So this is a problem.
Okay, thank you. Moment. Yes, moment.
So basically, we need to start somewhere. In everything, there must be the first step. So I still believe the conventions are part of the first steps. Then, of course, we institutions and other frameworks that may be a hindrance or that may add value to our seeking a single African piece of legislation that will protect Africans' data on the internet.
Yes.
In this point, I disagree with you, because why? In our countries, we build the courts first, or we adopt the legislation first. We build the courts first. We build the mechanisms first, because we will not have a specific mechanism or a specific legal course for digital issues. So when if we have African Court of Justice in Africa, so it will be responsible for digital issue and flying issue and organize everything.
Okay, but what is the use of the law and the court if nobody complain about the breach? This is very important. In Europe, there is complaints, and that's why there is a court, etc. Here, there is not.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I just wanted to add one thing. When in lawmaking, you start with the laws, then you establish institutions, and then you implement them. It's not the other way around. You can't start with the courts and then you don't have the laws, because the laws are the ones establishing the courts. So
for a specific issue, we will not need courts mechanisms in Africa. We don't need a specific courts like for human rights.
Yeah.
If we take the human rights, so
yeah.
Okay, the human rights need a specific courts or commissions.
Yeah.
Is responsible for human rights.
Yeah.
But in our discussion, we need like courts in the regional level.
Yeah.
Responsible for everything. Yeah. So if as I told you, imagine now the 53 countries now signing and ratified the Malabo, but we don't have like mechanisms. We don't have complaints or way for complaints or courts. So it's nothing.
Yeah.
That's
but
what
I
mean.
agree with you, but I think what we need to do as Africans is just, first of all, to establish the institutions.
Exactly.
Yeah, the African Union Commission is unlike the EU Commission. They have the powers. Exactly. They can just go there and actually admonish even states that do not, say, for example, transpose the EU laws. If they don't implement them, they are going to be admonished. There is also the economic and financial muscles at the EU level. But with Africa, we don't have the institutions, strong institutions.
Yes.
That's what we need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Last question.
Okay, just quickly, for information, West Africa has West African Court of Justice. You know, the banning of Twitter recently in Nigeria, has been condemned by the West African Court of Justice. So that's kind of regional, sub-regional mechanism. Well, it's good to have a ratification, really, but cooperation is very important. Yeah, then lastly, we have some payment gateway in Africa. So for information, like Floataway, I don't work with Floataway, and then e-Transact. Like I was able to do my payment here, easily, no issue, unlike before. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimson. Thank you very much for this remark. We reached the end of our session. So thank you very much all. I am really sorry for the technical issues we had at the beginning and during this session. I am so sad that you couldn't see my slides, but it's like this. And I hope you are happy with our session, and I hope that the next time we will have better technical support. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Have I opened my mic here? Or next session. The next session is about to start now. Yeah, it's session 7, Africa Cyber Capacity Priority Needs, Future Challenges and Opportunities. You need to.
Good morning, everyone. So just to make sure everybody is in the right room, this is working session 7, which is entitled Africa, Cyber Capacity Priority Needs, Future Challenges, and Opportunities. We are currently waiting for one panelist, so I'm going to ask for 60 seconds so I can quickly go get her. I think the size of the rooms have her confused and she might be in the next room. So I'll go get her and then we'll start the session punctually. Or our online moderator is actually going to look for her. So my name is Jacqueline Pateguana. I am the Clearinghouse Coordinator at the Global Forum for Cyber Expertise, and I will be your moderator for today's session. We are here with a group of multi-talented multi-stakeholders from different institutions who will be sharing a little bit about their expertise with CBB needs for Africa, as well as the opportunities that exist and challenges. Without further ado, and because of agenda issues, I am going to ask Dr. Tuwela Nyirenda Jere to give her intervention, as she has another appointment at 11 o'clock. So she'll kick us off with this subject, and then we will move on to Dr. Martin Koyabi. Dr. Tuwela is the head of division for economic integration at the AU Development Agency, AUDA. The division is responsible for implementation and programs that advance regional integration. She has over 20 years experience. She's an electrical engineer with a lot of development practice work behind her in her career as well. So Dr. Tuwela, if you would come up here and give your...
Thank you very much, Jackie, and good morning to everyone. I think maybe let me start by thanking all of you for making the time to be here, and also to the GFCE for organizing the session. So as Jackie has says, I work for the African Union Development Agency based in Midrand, South Africa, and specifically on economic integration, which relates to issues of infrastructure and connectivity. So we are collaborating with the GFCE on the AU GFCE Cyber Capacity Building Project, which started in 2021 and will be scheduled for implementation until I think early 2023, after which we will look at perhaps another iteration based on the findings that we've had so far. I think what I want to perhaps emphasize in the time that I have is a few things. Number one, obviously we all understand the need for cyber capacity building. We understand the current context that we're in terms of how a lot of our lives are online and digital, and therefore heavily impacted in terms of the ability to make sure that everything that we do online is safe and secure. And in order to do that, we then have to make sure that we have the right capacities and skills within our various institutions to be able to enable us to actually participate effectively in the so-called digital economy. So that is one of the reasons behind this project, because we recognize the fact that there was a need to have a very dedicated focus on cyber capacity building for the continent. Martin will go into the details of the project itself in terms of the various elements, but what I would perhaps want to touch on, number one, is that one of the things that we have done and why the AU also was very interested in this project was to really engage with member states directly in terms of making sure that we were able to engage member states to understand what were their cyber capacity needs, what were the issues that people were struggling with, and therefore that would enable us to develop and devise the relevant modules and interventions to support that. So we reached out to all the member states. So far, I think we've managed to, reach more than at least up to about 70% of member states. A number of member states still are yet to respond in terms of, number one, providing us with information, providing us with focal points in order for us to understand who we engage with. And these focal points that we have asked for, again, following a multi-stakeholder approach, is we want focal points in government, we want focal points in academia, in the tech sector, in civil society, etc. So I think very important in terms of a key takeaway, if you're one of the countries perhaps that is not currently participating in the project, you need to reach out to us and make sure that you're adequately represented in terms of this project. The second thing I think to mention is that against the backdrop of the project, one of the ideas that we had was to make sure that as a continent we were able to come together in terms of being able to chart a path in terms of our cyber capacity building needs. So we wanted to make sure that there wasn't fragmentation in terms of how we do things. Similar to how we have the Africa IGF now, which allows us to come together and engage in multi-stakeholder dialogue on issues that pertain to internet governance. We wanted also to make sure that for cyber capacity building, we have a similar approach. So there has been a committee set up that is the Cyber Capacity Building Coordinating Committee, and I think Maktar will talk a little bit about that in terms of how that works and which are the institutions that are working there. But what it does is it brings together the Pan-African institutions in the space to be able to talk about issues around cyber capacity building needs, but to also understand who is doing what, who is best placed to do what, and how do we make sure that we're not overly duplicating in terms of the work that we're doing across the continent in cyber capacity building. The last thing that I want to mention is the fact that, again, related to the fact that we understand the fact that we have differentiated needs in terms of cyber capacity building and cyber expertise. With the support of the GFCE, UNECA, and other entities, we are in the process of forming the Network of African Women in Cybersecurity, which is really going to help us to add that voice and that dimension of focusing on gender issues when we start talking about cyber capacity building needs. And we will be having a session this afternoon talking about how we can empower women to be better actors in cybersecurity, but we will also do a soft launch of the network tomorrow. So I think what we are also asking for is that for women who are interested in participating in the space, please get in touch with us, but also for the partners out there and the other stakeholders, we need that support to build that vibrant community of women experts in cyber capacity and cyber expertise. So with that, I'm going to have to leave you, but wish you all a very fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tuwela. So apart from Dr. Tuwela, we have 5 more panelists. Here, physically present with us, we have Dr. Martin Koyabe, who is with the AU GFCE project that you just referred to, and he will be our next speaker. Afterwards, we'll have Dr. Maktar Sek, who is with UNECA. He is the economic officer there. And then we have online participation from Smart Africa, as well as from ISOC. And as we get further into their presentations, I will present the people speaking, but for now, I will leave it to Dr. Marte Koyabe, having in mind that we end at 11:40, so we really were in a rush to get all this information out to you. Please do make sure to keep all your questions so that at the end, I can give you 10, 15 minutes to be able to pose them to the panelists and have some response. And then if not, obviously we're here until Thursday, end of the day. So without further ado, Dr. Martin Koyabe.
First of all, thank you so much for everyone here who has come for this particular session. I do have a presentation, and it's divided into 3 parts. So as they say, technology gives and takes in equal measure, so there's some technology which they're trying to do so that I can be able to flip the slides. But just to go into the details of the project, and before I go into the details, we wanted to look at the issues around capacity building and what are the challenges and opportunities that are there when you talk about capacity building. And I know you are in the room, everybody's convinced, and I'm sure we've got enough experts in the room who will agree with me that there are some specific challenges. So I'm just waiting for my slides to be on the screen, and then once the slides come on the screen, then we can continue. But the point is that the areas that we've been looking at, especially when you look at many of the projects that have taken place on the continent. Okay, I think we have something working. Do I have the remote? Yeah, can I have the remote? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So does it work? Excuse me, does the remote work? Oh, here? Where do I face? Okay, you just press the next one. Just press the next slide, the next slide. So first of all, when you look at capacity building, there are so many issues that we have to understand. In terms of what you look at, either the functionality within capacity building, and then we've got accountable institutions that you have to establish so that you can be able to have what we call efficient capacity building within countries. And the key here that we're looking at is how effective, especially when you look at strengthening countries' resilience. So basically, when you look at cyber security, it's mainly looking at how do you attain resilience when it comes to digital resilience within a country. And that's what we're looking at in terms of building capacity from a cyber perspective. Next slide, please. So there are a number of initiatives that are going on within the continent. This is just an example in ECOWAS, where we've got collaboration between the EU and ECOWAS to build capacity, especially when it comes to West Africa response on cybercrime and cyber issues, which is a project that is ongoing. And then you also have other projects, especially the Interpol, where they're also building capacity with the Africa organizations to build capacity within the police corporations in Africa. And then you have other organizations also, like for example, the AUSEG, which is also working with African Union to build capacity when it comes to issues of strengthening the strategy for Africa. Now, these are examples that you get out there of capacity building that you can actually have in order to build examples. When you look at the challenges, there are a number of issues that I wanted to look at here, but very quickly, we have challenges when it comes to the cohesion, cooperation, and also harmonization, especially when you talk of state actors and non-state actors. There is a need to have that cooperation. There's a need to have that harmonization within countries and also at regional level and continental level. There is limited coordination among players sometimes. So you find, for example, in the south and the north, you find that sometimes donor agencies, development partners do not actually align themselves in order to be able to provide services that are not duplicating and also wasting resources for recipient countries. Likewise, it is important that recipient countries, and of course most of them who are here, can be able to prioritize what are the levels of assistance that they require, so that when countries or when donors or development partners come to the countries, they can be able to address issues that are relevant and that are effective and that actually lead to helping other people. And then, of course, the issue of policy and regulatory reforms, you might find that that's a challenge, because if you don't have the adequate reforms, the adequate policies that are in place in order to enable the development of capacity in one way or another, then you have an issue, especially when institutions are not developed or institutions are not implemented or actually established that can be able to take forward the issues of capacity building in the recipient countries. And of course, lastly here, before last, is the shortage of finance and sometimes mentoring. So you find that is a key issue that happens, there's issues there, and then also the high cost of accessing and even availability of the digital services that are available. So these are just not necessarily a holistic list, but it just gives you some of the challenges that I'm sure some of you in the room here have either experienced or you've been trying to resolve in your own institutions, or at least trying to collate efforts so that we can address these issues. The project that we wanted to talk about here very quickly is the AU-GFC project collaboration. And I really want to thank my colleague, Toela, who had just presented just a few minutes ago. She's already left the room, but she is actually leading the AUDA-NEPAD team, and the AUDA-NEPAD team has been working with ourselves, with the African Union, and of course we have to thank our sponsors, the Bill and Belinda Gates Foundation, who have actually been very keen on sponsoring this particular project. The GFCE, as we well know, constitutes of many partners. So you've got member countries, you've got donor agencies, development agencies, you've got civil society, you've got even international organizations that comprise the GFCE. That is the Global Forum for Cyber, on cyber expertise. And I know some of you are here who are members of the GFC, and that's very good to see you here. And the African Union, for those of you who understand African Union, we've got many AU development agencies, regional economic communities like ECOWAS, SADC, and also others. You've got AU member states who are very keen, and other affiliate organizations. Of course, Makta is here, he will talk about it. And then this combination of these particular two teams have actually looked at formulating what we call the AU-GFC project, which I'll talk about briefly. So if we go to the next slide, the objectives of the project are very clear. It aims at enhancing the capacity building and knowledge, and to enable the African countries to better understand capacity, cyber capacities, and identify and address national capacity needs that will enable them to strengthen their resilience. So the question really here is, how do African countries enhance their cyber capacity, building status? And how do they enhance resilience within that? And this project addressed three issues. So the first issue, if you flip the slide please, is first of all to understand and prioritize the issues of cyber in each of the countries. That was important because many countries have different priorities. With COVID hitting many of the countries, it was very clear that health was competing in terms of budgetary constraints to countries. It was very clear that connectivity became a priority for many of the countries. So therefore, some of the issues that had been planned for, especially in capacity building, were relegated. Therefore, it was important for us to understand the capacity in terms of the priorities of the countries. Then the next issue that we had, if you flip to the next slide, was the issue around establishing what we call a sustainment strategy. You've got to make sure that you build expertise. You have countries with their own experts participating in the project so that they can be able to take forward the results of the project, and that's why Makta is here. He'll talk about what are the issues. And then we can be able to make sure that there is what we call the acceptance from the countries themselves to be able to accept this as their own, rather than being a project of AU GFCE. So that's what we tried here. And by doing that, we set up what we call the Africa Cyber Experts Community. So if you know you are an non-state actor in this room, and nobody has told you about this particular project, please see me after this and we'll be able to have a discussion. And if you know that you've got, either you're in the state or non-state and you're here, see me and we'll be able to discuss if you've not heard of this project in your country. And then the next slide, please, is the issue around the aim of the project was to build what we call knowledge modules. Knowledge modules are similar to what you call, maybe what you call best practice or good practice, but these are sort of accessed online. Think about it this way. You have a country that has an individual or an officer who wants to understand issues to do with certs or issues to do with how you formulate the legislation for data protection and privacy. So the question is, instead of calling a consultant to come in, you have access to this knowledge that you can access to understand what are the processes that are involved, the basic needs that are involved, the people that you need to contact, and how you can formulate specific agendas that you want to put up in your country. So these knowledge modules had a different component to it. I don't want to go to details, but the point is that they give you what we call the case studies that have worked in different parts of the world, especially within the region. They give you an audio of testimonies of individuals who are subject matter expert to tell you exactly what you need to do in that particular part. So we've been developing these knowledge modules as well. Next slide, please. So just very quickly, what did we do? We made sure that, first of all, we needed to understand the basic areas of priority of many of the African countries. And some of the African countries that are here, we did discuss with them. We looked at the repository information that exists, ITU. We looked at the indexes by eGov in Estonia. We also looked at National Cybersecurity Strategy Assessment done by the AU to make sure that we can understand all the countries, and then discussed with the African countries themselves to be able to prioritize a list of what's going on. The next slide, please. And then when we did that, we went into the next phase of this particular project. These are the countries. We've got roughly about over 35 countries that have been involved in this particular process. And I really want to thank the representatives, who are, some of them are here, that have been involved in this very tedious process to make sure that we can understand the priorities of the countries. And we had a formula of actually whom we were contacting, and I'll talk about that shortly. Next slide, please. The way we worked around this was that within the continent, we looked at what is existing. These are repositories that are available. We looked at the first two, especially just give you an example of the first two, for example, the Cyber Maturity Model by Oxford. There's the Global Cybersecurity Index by ITU. Those are some of the areas that we looked at to make sure that we could understand what is the position in each of the countries. I remember when I was talking to my good friend Christopher Banda in Malawi, he actually came and told me, no, that report that we sent is not necessarily very accurate, especially for Malawi, because at the time of submission to ITU, there was a requirement that some of the documents were supposed to be online. And therefore, they were marked a little bit lower, which might not necessarily have been the case if that particular aspect had been done. Next slide, please. And then what we did is that, for example, in the case of assessment, this was the status at 2020, 2021. Of course, this has changed. Malawi, I think you can calculate yourselves. You've had your assessment twice, which is very, very good. And we've got other countries which have had their own assessments that have been done. We also have Rwanda there. No, Uganda has had its assessment twice, and other countries which have followed, and I'm sure this list has changed dramatically. Next slide, please. And then, of course, when you look at the ITU ranking, this is something that is already available. Yeah? And I think we have to be very clear, although Tanzania looks as number 2 in Africa, it is actually number 3 because Egypt is the first one in Africa, if you look at the continent. So we have to be very careful how the ITU ranking is done, especially at Africa region and Africa Arab states. So that's something that we need to look at. But we looked at all this ranking in order to understand the countries. Next slide, please. And then after that, we went further. We took the priorities of the countries, related them to what we had on the right-hand side to understand exactly what each country required. Next slide, please. And when you look at the table, this is an interesting tabulation. So what you see at the top, those are countries. These are the areas of priorities that we've assessed. And other countries have other priorities as well, okay, as you can see there. So when you look at the priorities and when we're trying to assess where are many of the dots, that means that's where there's more of the priorities, yeah? And when you go to the next slide, please just press. No, go back. Somebody's too fast. Just go back again. just press next. Are you able to press something? Yep, that's good. So these two appear to be the most, these are the highest priorities for each of the countries. Okay? Areas to do with certs in terms of protection of the critical infrastructure, making sure that's done, and capacity building, which is why we are here. How do we make sure that we increase that? That's what the countries are saying. That's what the data is saying. And one interesting factor, just press one again, was that a country like Gambia, for example, had a requirement of all the items to be addressed. Compared to another country, go next, like Rwanda, which only had a few. So therefore, countries had different requirements. They didn't have the same requirements of all these particular ones that we had. And then go to the next slide, please. And then, of course, there was a difference in terms of priority, but I just want to talk on one point there. At the end there, you see that cyber norms and cyber diplomacy, that is a need today, which is really, really at the top of priorities for many of the countries. So that's something that we need to look at. This is just the composition of priority. In terms of inclusion, go to the next one, please. We looked at different state actors. There was, I think someone might have asked me, what is the composition of the Africa Cyber experts? We made sure that there was somebody from government who understands strategy, who understands policy. We needed that person. We also chose somebody who understands critical infrastructure, which we require, so somebody from the SAT community, and also the civil society or the business sector. So that's important, and that's why I'm talking to non-state actors here, who are the majority in this particular forum, to make sure that we have more of the non-state actors playing a role in deciding what is relevant for their countries. So that's important. Next slide, please. And coming back, we are just nearly there. We, of course, talked to these particular people. Next slide, please. We invited them to Ghana. This is in Ghana, so if you see yourself there, yeah, if you see yourself there, that's congratulations to you. So there was a kickoff meeting in Ghana where we met to make sure that everyone understood what the knowledge modules were, how the knowledge modules were continuing. I can see some people seeing themselves, but that's the photo that was taken in Ghana. So these are the people. So we have, and these are African experts chosen by the countries to serve the country so that they can understand the technology, understand what is going on in the project, then they can be able to sustain that project going forward, as we shall see shortly. Go ahead, next slide. This just gives you the improvement. When we did an assessment, there was an increase in number of SAT players in there, so you can see that. Civil society, you had your place there. You can see that number has jumped a little bit up, which is good. So if you compare 2021, 2022, you can see the figures are changing. And this is an improvement because we've increased the number of players in that particular community. Next slide, please. We've encouraged countries to make sure that they can expand it. So if you are here and you've never heard of this, please go to your focal point, and we can give you the focal point. Talk to them so that you're part of this particular equation. Next slide, please. This just talks about the knowledge module. So I'll just spend very short time. 3 things here. Knowledge modules, as I said earlier, aim to make sure that there is better understanding. There are 3 components here. 1, addressing the cybersecurity needs that I talked about. The gaps, the priorities, making sure that we can address those priorities. The second issue is to improve communication. And I just want to spend a minute here. It is very common that when technocrats talk to decision makers, we really waffle around, talk about man in the middle attack and all these technology issues, but we miss the key points. Therefore, we don't communicate ourselves better to decision makers. Likewise, decision makers have a problem to understand what we are talking about. So communication is important at policy level. And then gender. We needed to address the issue of gender gap. That's why there is the network of African women in cyber, which we shall talk about, and is being launched tomorrow. I think it may be afternoon or tomorrow, that we have actually pushed to make sure that the gender gap is bridged, and we all know exactly the benefits for that. Next slide, please. So just coming to an end, we have been working with Diplo to develop the knowledge modules. Next slide, please. And these are the examples of the knowledge modules that are available. We are now working towards making them available for each of the countries to be able to access. You and any other person can access these knowledge modules to give you an idea what is happening. Next slide, please. That's where they are. They are online, so we are really working hard. We've already developed these knowledge modules with Diplo, a foundation, who are actually attending this forum. We have been having what we call enhancement sessions, and anybody is welcome from your local countries to attend those enhancement sessions. We actually have 2 enhancement sessions to go, but we shall repeat this enhancement process so that we can be able to understand it better. Next slide, please. Let me talk about sustainment. This is important because we need to sustain the project. How do we sustain the project? The way we want to do this is to make sure that we can address a number of issues. So one is the issue of the GFCE clearinghouse. My colleague Jacqueline, she is actually the person responsible for this process. What this process means is that member countries can actually request for assistance from the GFCE. The GFCE then collects all those requests from member countries and then prioritizes them and presents them to the development agencies, donor agencies, and other partners who are able to provide the assistance to member countries. And that's the way the process works. So if you have this kind of need, please have a word with Jacqueline. And then, of course, we have the enhancement role where Makta will talk about it. This is one area that we're really working on to make sure that we can build capacity. So therefore, there's what we call the Cyber Capacity Building Coordination Committee, and Makta will talk a little bit more. The aim is to make sure that they can oversee what is happening in cyber capacity building related projects. Next slide, please. We are enhancing the knowledge modules. That's what we are doing, putting them in French and English so far. We know there are other languages. Swahili has just been approved as one of the main languages for AU, so we'll do that. They will be online, and we are working on incentive mechanisms. How do we make sure that the content of the knowledge modules can be changed? How do we make sure it can be improved? And how do we make sure that somebody can be able to earn something out of it, even get a certificate, and be known as a CCB expert? Next slide, please. Please. Next slide, please. This is the projection of the project, so I don't want to spend a lot of time. We are now in the sustainment phase, and the project aims to end in 2022, but we shall extend it a little bit up to 2023 in the first quarter. Next slide, please. So, another slide. We are going to just back a bit. Yeah. So this is for the next meeting, which will take place in Congo, Brazzaville. We are very thankful for Congo, who actually accepted to host this meeting. We will be there in September 27th to 29th to look at the project again, meeting with the ACE community. I would urge that if you are a non-state actor, you are here, or any other person that you're here, and you've not heard about this, please feel free, get in touch, and we'll be able to discuss further. Next slide, please. And that's my contact, so you can always contact me if you wish. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin. So we will move on to hear a little bit more about the Africa CCB Coordination Committee, which is basically, as was referred to here, and a body that oversees a lot of the cyber capacity building initiatives that occur within the continent. For that, I'm going to ask Dr. Mark Tesek from UNECA to come and present the experiences and the work that this body has been doing and how they can assist in mapping out and aiding in growing cyber capacity initiatives within the continent. So, Dr. Mark Tesek.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I think it's okay now. Good morning. I think it's fine now. Yeah, let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, where you are. I think it is a very important topic to discuss today with GFC and all delegates on how improvement has been done in terms of capacity building in the African continent on related to the cyber security. As you know, cyber security is very, very, very important in the continent. Because now cybercrime and also attack cost to 10% of the Africa GDP. It's a lot. And also we have a lack of professional on cybersecurity in the continent. We have 1 billion point 24 population, and now you have only around 8,000 professionals certified in cyber security. The demand is there. And we need more than 100,000 people to be professional certified. And why we have to commend the work of GFCA on cyber capacity building. Of course, we work together with several partners, but several progress have been made in terms on policy strategy, in terms of standard, in terms of capacity building, as well in terms of legal framework. Now, what next? We have to focus on key areas. I think the presentation of Dr. Martin is very clear. You have seen the key focus area, the key result, and the next step. As UNECA, as member of the coordination committee, we would like to focus to key area where I think we need more improvement. The first one, it is on the coordination. Coordination is very important because as you have you seen here, you have several initiatives running in the continent. Dr. Martin doesn't present all. And you have REX as a policy capacity building on cyber security. We have regional organization. We have also some international organization in the continent to come to provide this capacity building. We need a coordination of all, and why the role of UNECA is very important. We'll work with GFC, it is to make all this support on the same basket and to better respond to the need of the continent. Of course, I think when you have seen the focus area presented by Dr. Martin in terms of cyber attack, incident of search, I think it is a need of the continent, and we need to coordinate this. The second, it is institutional capacity building. It's very important. We build, of course, the capacity of the expert, but we need to focus on the institutional capacity building at the national, regional, and the continental level. Is only one way we can sort out the issue of lack of cyber security capacity in the continent, because cyber security is not something alone. We have to work together. Yeah, it is something for at the national, sub-regional, and continental level. I think the issue of external capacity is very important. And the third one, it is, I think there is something happening now in the corner with this women network of cyber security. But for the capacity building, we have seen a lot of contribution to bridge the gender digital divide in cyber security. I think it's very important to ask every woman to be involved in this network to be launched, I think, this afternoon. Also, we have now 35 country involved. We need more. We need to have all African countries to be involved in this Africa Hub. When I talk African country, I talk to the state and non-state actor. All should be part, because we have academia, we have private sector, we have telecom operator, we have member state, we have parliamentary. All these people should be involved and participate in this Africa Hub to fight cybercrime in the continent and to build the capacity of African country to be ready for the fourth industrial revolution. And I can highlight some projects initiated by ECA, UNECA, on this area. We are based on the work done by GFCA. Now we are building now an African cybersecurity center in Togo. This will be launched by end of the year. And this African cybersecurity will also provide a lot of activity like capacity building, awareness, as well as some policy guidelines for the African continent. We have some experts in the room working on this, the establishment of the center. We also have seen a lot of issue about policy capacity building. But we already have this AU Convention on Cybersecurity, called it Malabo Convention. But as of today, only we have 14 countries ratified this convention. And this convention was elaborated in 2014 and adopted by each of states. We need to do something. Yeah. It is something I think very important to call upon all African countries to ratify this AU Convention on Cybersecurity, I think is very important, and we have all the provision in this framework. It's the reason why ECA has prepared a cybersecurity model laws to complete this framework. And I think the meeting is after tomorrow. We are going to discuss and to validate as a technical expert the cybersecurity model laws before to submit to the African Head of State next year. And also we have, when I talk about coordination, we have several other outcome multi-stakeholder in the continent and in the world. We have this African IGF, of course, linked to the global IGF. By the way, UNECA will support to Ethiopia to organize this year the global IGF in Addis Ababa from 28 November to 2 December. And we need to make the link between the activity of GFCA and this African IGF also and the global IGF. Also, we have this issue of WISIS, World Summit Information Society. And we have a lot of capacity building linkage on cyber security. We have also to link with the GFCS work, as well as what is a big umbrella now for the UN. It is a digital global compact. Yeah. Now we are going to launch in next year at the General Assembly 2023 in September, this global digital compact, to think about what kind of feature we need on the digital in Africa, in the world. And I think we should linkage our work on all these key multi-sectoral umbrella in the continent and in the world. To conclude, we have also several other activities. We work with Smart Africa on this cyber security framework. Cyber security framework, Smart Africa, I think, is like GFCA. You have 35 country in GFCA, and Smart Africa, I think, is a 33 country. We have also a working group with ECOWAS. All this, I think, is very important for Africa, and we need this collaboration and coordination. I would like to thank you, everybody, and also ECA is ready to support GFCA to work together and to support all African countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Magda. Thank you. And so to end our interventions and to talk about how this multi-stakeholder CCB works in practical terms, I'm going to call our last speaker who's here on site, who is Ms. Mary Udoma. Obviously, she needs no introduction as the chairperson of MAG, but she's going to talk a little bit about the role of non-state players and what opportunities exist going forward with cyber capacity building for our region. So, Ms. Mary, please.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to our session. Should I remove this? Thank you. I think I need no introduction. Most of you know me, and I play in this space. I've been here for almost 20 years in IG space, and I have been in the non-state actor space. And what do I mean by that? At our national level, I started the IGF, Internet Governance Forum, and there's no year in our annual forum that we don't take. There's no year. I should come there. Technically, please. There's no year in our annual IGF that we don't include cybersecurity. Is an issue. It's one of the policy issues that we talk about. We talk about digital policies, digital development, digital issues. We must include cybersecurity and crime. And some of us are from where, quote and unquote, it is assumed, perceived that cybercrime is highest in that side. I'm from Nigeria, but you find out that some of them are from Russia. and they may claim that they are Nigerians. So I want to put this caveat that not all the cyber crime issues you see on the net are from West Africa. They are not from West Africa. Some of them are from Russia. Thank you. Having said that, as non-state actor, we are not depending on government. There are institutions in our region, like the West African region. We have an institution for cyber security and cyber crime policy development. The issue